Okay, can we go ahead and get started? It's
I was running
a
down
few
the
minutes
street
after
with Doug's
6.
auto,
We've got
see if they could fix a
some
car.
stragglers coming in, but
If he
I
can,
see
yeah, I'll get you.
Fred is here,
Yeah.
so we can go ahead. If you would, bow your heads and let's open with a prayer. Father God, we're blessed with in so many ways with all the wonderful things that you have given us both as a church and individually. Tonight we're gathered here as Methodists to talk about the future of Methodism. But just as importantly, we're here because we are Christians who belong to a universal church. Each of us have our own opinions and beliefs, some shared and some not. And no matter what those are, we ask that they be discussed in a polite and respectful way. Grant us clarity of purpose with the goal of coming up with some common sense solutions. Guide us, direct us, inspire us to do what is right in your eyes. We lift this prayer in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, so tonight we're here for two purposes. First, we asked if there were any additional members who would like to address the congregation, and we do have two that we'll get to in just a moment. And then secondly, we want to go over the survey that you received when you came in the door. If you're a professing member of Memorial and didn't receive one, then raise your hand and we'll get one for you. I would like to remind those of you who have teenagers who have been confirmed at Memorial Methodist and have joined here that they're eligible to fill out a survey form and to vote later on if it comes to a vote for disaffiliation. So just make sure if you have a teenager and they were unable to be here tonight and they have been confirmed, then you can certainly pick up a survey form and take it home with you. Just make sure that one of the ladies and one of the staff, either Katie or Laney, mark the name off of the membership list and that they give you a survey. So before we hear from our speakers, I'd like to recognize the extraordinary amount of work that the staff has done just to prepare even for this meeting, not even counting the others. From organizing and updating the membership rolls, which is very important, to printing and collating the survey forms, and setting up what you see here tonight. Laney and Katie and Tawny and Jimmy and Kimberly, we'd like to thank you. Also, thanks are in order to both Adam and Judd for helping us with the video and the audio for tonight. And the meeting will be available for reviewing, if you would like, on our website probably by tomorrow, Adam. So if you want to look at it again, it'll be out there. As I said, we have two speakers. Just as with our previous speakers, we are asking that they limit their comments to 4 to 5 minutes. And I'm going to start with Steve Barbary. Steve?
Good evening. My name is Steve Barbary, and I've been a member here at Memorial for over 45 years. And to be honest, I never thought we would be having town hall meetings talking about the future of Memorial under the circumstances that we're under and that we're facing. At first, they seemed so far away, happening in areas of the world and other parts of our nation and that would never affect us here in Greer. But here we are. And it's disappointing, it's scary, And it's realizing that Satan is in the middle, creating all the doubt and confusion among us all. Dealing with this issue has taken us away, and our staff and everybody away from doing what we should be doing and what God has called us to do. As much as we want to not believe, there's a shadow hanging over us, not knowing what tomorrow's carry in relation to our church. You just about couldn't get through a Sunday school class or a meeting in the past year without the subject coming up. And I call it a lot of water cooler talk. Everybody has their own opinions. And I believe Robbie said in the last meeting that vote or no vote, there will be those of us who will go or stay, and that's sad. But I also think it doesn't have to be the case. I think it would be safe to believe there's no one in this gym tonight who wants to see Memorial go through a split. I see all the good things we have here at Memorial with our kids and our youth and our Joy Ministries, and our staff is second to none. And we offer things that large churches many times cannot offer. We all know each other. Our families worship together each week. And as I've listened to the members in our stewardship talks over the past month, you begin to realize what this church has meant to a lot of people over the years. I think about all those who forged the trail before us since forming Memorial, and they laid the path and the foundation for what we have believed and worshiped. Ministers who led us through both joys and trials during those years. During those years, we based our allegiance to the Book of Discipline. And it appears now that that's in doubt with the leadership in the Methodist Church, and they're in no hurry to reverse the trends that's been established in conflict with the Bible and the Book of Discipline. And I understand there's debate on both sides, and we should respect those debates. We all have our own opinions. But there's also a lot of unknowns right now. Will the vote be tabled again in May? And will we remain in a holding pattern for several years? And that's not healthy as a church. Is it possible to stay United Methodist and be able to be the church who we feel we are? Do our own thing in a denomination, which is putting ransoms on congregations which we'd like to leave at this point. And there's doubts that we're all going to have to sort through. And I know my time's about up, but in closing, I'd like to emphasize one important note. The United Methodist Church has offered to let us gain our property at a very attractive price, much lower than we ever anticipated it to be, and discussions have been. And I see that as a favor that they are offering. However, if we remain in the United Methodist Church, we'll continue to maintain those properties, but we will never own our property. We'll never have that. We'll never own it. And we have that chance now. Memorial has never let a good deal on property pass, as evidenced by the decisions which have been made in the past for this church. Building for growth, knowing that we're under the ransom held by the United Methodist Church, will be difficult to say the least. There's a lot of ugliness that has come out of this whole process within the church. But we have that chance now to remain the church we currently are and use the Book of Discipline as it's written as our source of direction. We are all Methodists in this room tonight, and we can continue to be together and still support the good that Memorial does in the community. A deal that allows us to continue to be together and see where God leads us. Whether we go global, independent, free Methodist, if that were to happen, that remains to be seen. But I believe cutting ties with the United Methodist Church and owning our property allows for growth. And I firmly believe the new building that has been planned will come to fruition and allow all our ministries to grow and outreach into our communities. So let's take the politics out and do what God has called us to do, and that is to be servants in God's kingdom. I firmly believe this is our best opportunity to stay intact as a congregation and build for the future. Thank you.
Our next and final speaker is Reverend Dennis Lee. Dennis.
Let me begin by saying I fault no one for the situation that we're in. We are individuals with different opinions about issues that matter to us. Nor do I fault our denominational leaders. Many of them in the annual conference are my friends. I have worked with many of them closely over the years. I have nothing but the greatest respect for their integrity and their commitment to Christ and to His church. What I do regard as the main contributor to the current predicament that we have is the pandemic. Complications related to COVID resulted in the General Conference not meeting the last 3 years, and thus not giving us some possible clarity about ways forward. As I've read and as I've listened, it seems that the major issue before us is homosexuality. Through the history of our denomination, delegates to General Conference and Annual Conference have taken stands and addressed social issues of the day, everything from civil rights to caring for the earth. I support that. I support struggling to give faith-based responses to issues that are facing us. And in regard to the current homosexual issues, I support changing the Book of Discipline so that it has inclusive language. There seem to be other topics as well, though. For example, some of us may not approve of the Methodist form of organization, which includes bishops with their power. Some of us may be dissatisfied with the way pastors are appointed, not chosen by the congregation. Others of us may not like the present benevolence plan, which we commonly call the apportionments. To me, there are pros and cons to every denomination's way of organizing. But I'm biased. I think our organization is as good or better than any of them. And the main reason I think that is what we call connectionalism. And let me say just a little bit more about that. And since I've heard some comments about apportionments, let me relate connectionalism to apportionments. You may have wondered, well, what do we receive in return for making our apportionment payments? I've got two responses to that. First is we get, in an organized way, an avenue for participating in missions beyond the local church and local community. It's a way in which we join with other United Methodist congregations to do things that no one church could do by itself. Currently, there are over 350 United Methodist missionaries serving in over 60 countries around the world. There are ministers preaching and helping organize churches. There are teams digging wells, much needed wells, in drought-stricken areas. We're sending nurses and teachers to help and to train others, and the list goes on and on. That's the kind of mission I want to support. So one thing we get in our giving is an avenue, a way to be in mission. The second is this. Some of us may have received something material, if I use that word. If you have ever been in an area struck by a tornado or a hurricane or impacted by a flood, you likely received disaster relief from the United Methodist Committee on Relief. And you also probably got help from the annual conference volunteer in mission. And think about Asbury Hills Church Camp, Salkehatchie Summer Service, Youth Convocation, campus ministries located on college and university campuses all over our state. All of these are supported in part by the apportionments. If anyone in your family has participated in any of those ministries, you have received something significant. Experiences at those ministries help to develop Christian faith in our children, and our youth, and young adults. There's more I would like to say, but there's not time in this setting. So let me close in this way. I believe independent churches do good. And I believe other denominations do good. But for the reasons I've stated and more, I choose to remain United Methodist.
Thank you, Steve and Dennis. So now we come to our second subject for tonight's meeting, the survey form that you have in your hand. First, I'd like to take a moment to refresh your memory and provide just a little bit of background. At our first town hall meeting, we went over the controversy currently facing United Methodism, and we defined the differences between discernment and disaffiliation. And we asked that you submit questions, and you did. We got over 150 questions. Some were duplicates. And we then had our second town hall meeting, and we answered those questions, plus we allowed other folks to come up and comment and talk about their beliefs and where they stand on United Methodism and disaffiliation. These two meetings followed suggestions from the conference on how to handle the education and how to inform the congregations in the conference about what's going on in United Methodism. We talked about the timelines as well and the procedures that are imposed on us by the South Carolina United Methodist Church. The first timeline in this process is a submission of several documents to the conference trustees. We talked about those last at our second town hall meeting. Those documents include deeds for our property. It includes financial documents. It includes appraisals of our property and information on our insurance going back several years. And I'd like to thank our trustees and also Jimmy Davis and and Laney and the rest of our staff, we have all of that information now. We have it compiled and prepared, and we intend to submit it to the conference trustees by December the 1st, which is the deadline. The next deadline that comes up is January the 1st, where we need to inform the district superintendent if we as a church want to go through the discernment process. And that, my friends, is where the survey you hold in your hands comes into play. Listen carefully to what I'm about to say. The vote to proceed with discernment must come from the administrative council. It is not a congregational vote. I'm going to repeat that. The vote to proceed with discernment comes from the administrative council. It is not a congregational vote. With that being the case, the church leadership felt like the best way to gauge the pulse of the congregation was to come up with a survey to do just that. There were some in the congregation that came up with the idea of a survey. Laney and I had talked about it. Robbie Septon came to me and suggested that we do it. Laney and Robbie and I met and came up with a rough draft of a survey. We refined it, and then we presented it last Monday night to the administrative council. After much discussion at the administrative council, the final draft that you see, that you have in your hands, was unanimously approved. So let's take a look at the finished product. The cover page is important because it addresses the definitions of discernment, disaffiliation, and a professing member. Plus, it also has the conference requirements and the timeline that that are dictated to us. I'm going to read to you what you see on the screen and what you have in your lap. And if you have a question, raise your hand and I'll try to answer it. We really don't want to get into a question and answer period, spend a lot of time with that. But if you do have a question about something on this first page, then please raise your hand and we'll try to answer it. And then next we have the actual survey. Our goal was to make it brief and simple and yet instructive enough so that the administrative council could make an informed vote on whether or not to proceed. So let's start with what you'll see is up on the screen, and what you have in your the written copy that you have with you that we're going to ask you to fill out. So I'm going to read exactly what you have there. If you have questions, then please raise your hand. The following survey is designed to gain anonymous information from Memorial United Methodist Church professing members to better serve our congregation as we move forward. Please note that the results of this survey do not directly determine future steps taken in any direction. Your responses are meant to help our administrative council and church leadership have a greater understanding of the pulse of our congregation. Next, you will see the definition of discernment. It's a mandatory 30-day period that each local church will have to complete prior to voting on disaffiliation to ensure that all members have the opportunity to be heard about whether the church should take such a momentous step. The discernment process does not necessarily result in a decision to enter the disaffiliation process. So discernment is more of what we've been doing at town hall meetings. I would guess that if we vote to go forward with discernment, if the administrative council does, then we would probably have one, maybe two at the most, more town hall meetings to allow people to express their beliefs as far as disaffiliation is concerned. Disaffiliation is the next definition. It's very simply the act and process of a church separating entirely from the United Methodist Church. The next definition is important. It tells us what a professing member is. A baptized person who has taken vows declaring the Christian faith in paragraph, as outlined in paragraph 217 of the Book of Discipline. That's also found in our hymnal and the Book of Worship. Professing members include all people who have come into membership of the United Methodist Church by a profession of faith or by transfer from other churches. And this includes students who have been confirmed within the United Methodist Church. The next paragraph talks about the requirements for disaffiliation in South Carolina. And one of the reasons it says South Carolina is because there are these requirements are different depending on what conference you happen to be in. So we have to have a completed checklist given by the district superintendent, or that completed checklist given by the district superintendent must be turned into the conference officials by respective deadlines. We've talked about that. We have all of that information together and it'll be submitted prior to December the 1st. All financial obligations must be met. That means if you owe any money or have any debt, then those financial obligations are required to be met before disaffiliation can take place. Church leadership must inform the district superintendent by January the 1st that your local church would like to enter the discernment process prior to 2024 General Conference, which happens in April and May. So that's what we're here tonight to determine. Yes, Barabi.
Just expanding on the all financial obligations must be met. That's not debts that we have on properties or loans. That's debts to the UMC. Is that correct?
No, that's debt to if you owe money on a property. What they're after is that if you go through the disaffiliation process, then the obligation must be transferred to the new entity rather than the Methodist Church. And we do have
Not paid, just transferred into your name.
exactly. So then we have to complete the 30-day discernment process prior to March the 1st. And at the conclusion of discernment, a church-wide vote of professing members may be held on disaffiliation. And we say may be held rather than must be held. A two-thirds majority of voting members present must be reached to disaffiliate. So if we went through discernment and decided to vote on this disaffiliation, it would be a church-wide vote requiring 67% of members present. So you would actually have to be there, no absentee voting. Okay, let's go over the questions. They're fairly straightforward and simple. As I said, we tried to make them as simple as possible so that and give us the most information at the same time so that the administrative board can make an informed decision when they vote. I do want to note also that for those who could not be present tonight, survey forms will be available next Sunday during our Consecration Sunday meeting. And also, if that's not possible, you can go by the church office and pick up a survey form. Speaking of which, Laney asked me, and this is before I forget about it, next Sunday is Consecration Sunday, and we will have a meal here in the Family Life Center after the worship service. The worship service is at 10. We'll have a meal in here starting at 11. It's a catered meal, no cost. Laney has asked me to make sure if you have not signed up and you would like to, you still have until tomorrow to sign up. It's important that we get a good count because it is a catered meal, and we'll have to pay for ever how many folks that we tell them we're going to serve. Okay, first question is, I am well informed on the current state of the United Methodist Church, including the processes of discernment and disaffiliation. And I hope our town hall meetings have accomplished that. The second question is, I have confidence in the leadership of the United Methodist Church outside of the local church leadership. Third question, if you participated in one or both of our town hall meetings, did you find the presentations to be helpful? Fourth question, does the cost of disaffiliation impact your opinion or preference to proceed with the discernment process? If you recall, there is a cost which includes 10% of our net worth, and that includes everything. What we had talked about before was, if you look at our current financial statement, you'll see that our net worth is $15 million. But that's based on replacement costs by the insurance company of our properties. We went out, spent $3,000 and got an appraisal on the church properties, and that appraisal was $4.2 million. And we also had previously gotten an appraisal on the parsonage, and I believe that was $513,000 or $519,000, something like that, just low 500,000s. So you will see there that we have an estimated cost of $900,000 to $1.1 million, which is considerably less than what we were talking about, $1.5 to $2 million. And that's, like it says there, that is just an estimate. The conference trustees, after they receive all this information from us, will tell us what the fee to disaffiliate might be. Question number 5. Do you believe Memorial United Methodist Church should enter the process of discernment before the General Conference, which is to be held April 23rd through May the 3rd, keeping in mind that the discernment process does not necessarily mean that Memorial would enter the disaffiliation process? Question 6. Do you believe Memorial should wait until after the General Conference held April 23rd to May the 3rd to make a decision on the process of discernment and disaffiliation? Question number 7. If Memorial were to not enter the discernment and disaffiliation process before the General Conference, would the decision change your current membership and participation? And finally, question 8. If Memorial were to enter the discernment and disaffiliation process before the 2024 General Conference and choose to separate from the United Methodist Church, would the decision change your current membership and participation? Those are the questions that we came up with. The answers to those questions will be compiled. I think I didn't know exactly who was going to do all the compilation, but we want to make sure that we have an unbiased opinion. Those people And I think Laney has already decided who's going to be on that committee, and I think she had carefully looked at who she felt like would make an informed decision. As soon as we have that information, which we need no later than the 26th of November, that's a Sunday, then we'll make all of that information public. We'll be as transparent as we can be with everything. As you know, there's no place for a name on the survey form. This is all completely anonymous. And if you have filled it, the preference is that you fill it out while you're here tonight, drop it in the basket on your way out. If, however, you want to take it home and think about it, pray about it, and maybe review what we've heard tonight, then you're welcome to do that as well. We just need it back by the 26th. Our hope is that, like I said, is that you'll complete the survey and drop it off on your way out tonight. And we do have to have it back by the 26th. Are there any questions?
Well,
Pete?
if we go through discernment, there's no time limit on when we would have to vote on this affiliation. We aren't restricted to like 30 days or 60 days after discernment. Is that correct?
We have to decide whether we will disaffiliate by March the 1st. So we have 60 days, roughly January the 1st to March the 30th, to go through March the 1st, to go through a 30-day discernment process. After that discernment process is completed, which would include a town hall meeting or two, I would say, then we would decide whether to take a vote. At the end of discernment, we would decide whether to take a vote on disaffiliation or not. If we decide to take a vote, then that vote would have to occur before March the 1st, because by then we would have to, by March the 1st, we have to inform the district superintendent and the conference trustees that we intend to disaffiliate. Which also means during that period, one important thing is going to have to happen, and that is we're going to have to figure out where, if the vote to disaffiliate passes, if we go that far and it does pass, then there's going to have to be a plan, a financial plan on where to come up with that $1 million. Marjorie?
I don't understand. If the conference is not meeting until April and May, why do we have to, I mean, you're saying if we go into discernment, we only have a certain amount of time to decide if we want to disaffiliate. And that would have to be before the conference itself?
That's correct.
That doesn't make sense.
Well, you may be right, but the conference trustees have set these parameters and these deadlines. And as you know from our last town hall meeting, we were shocked to find out that we had to have this information that we're going to present to them on the 1st of December. We didn't think we needed that until we started to go through the discernment process in January. So it's a moving target. Hopefully it's not moving anymore. Fred?
Also, we don't know what the new rules are going to be if we still want to discuss. It may be twice what we want to.
You're exactly right. Fred made the statement that we don't know that the rules may change, that it may be 20% instead of 10% to disaffiliate, or who knows, it could be 0. Jimmy?
Ralph, what are the pros and cons of waiting before or after the general conference meeting to go through the process?
That's the $64,000 question. I don't see anything. The pros are that the pros and the con is the same thing. that I just mentioned with Fred, and that is that they may change the disaffiliation rules. They may or may not change the book of discipline. We just don't know. All you can do is make your own informed guess.
Ralph,
James?
Yeah, a little confused on this financial obligation. We're talking about if we just affiliate, we've got to come up with millions up. Does that money have to be paid off to be just so we can proceed?
That money has to be put in an escrow account by May the 31st. And then if the conference trustees approve Memorial disaffiliating along with other churches, and then it's voted on at the annual conference, then that money would go to the conference. If for some reason that money were in an escrow account and the conference trustees and or the annual conference denied the disaffiliation request, then we would get the money back.
But I assume we have already sent that money. Is that not good something?
I would assume so. I think there's a couple of people out here I think that could write a check.
So we don't have to borrow that money, we don't have to pay that off before we disaffiliate. I guess that's
It could just be a debt that the church would have.
okay.
And other churches have done that. Now, Jimmy has told me about Buncombe Street. I think they borrowed money, but the congregation, I think, is almost ponied up the entire amount. And they may already have it paid off. And that was from last June. So some churches would have to borrow the money. Others may have it. Smaller churches may have the money. Robbie?
Ralph, any idea what would happen if we just didn't pay it?
I think there would be a lawsuit. There's got to be. They would have some type of. They would do something. That has happened in some other conferences. If you read, and the conference is actually just taken over the church. It's not it wouldn't be very good PR to have the sheriff's deputies out here putting changing the locks on our doors, but it has something similar to that has happened in other conferences. Don?
I have two questions. What portion of the $1 million is pension obligations and apportionment payment requirements, which seems fair? And two is, how many professing members do we have?
I can. Do you know that, Laney? Professing members?
Not with certainty, off the top of my
Okay.
head.
We have been, in the last couple of months, we've been trying to clean up the rolls. So we can find that out. The pension requirement is fairly small part of that. I don't know exactly what it is. The fact that we don't have a minister now makes that less. The apportionment part of that is around $170,000 because it's the apportionments of the previous year that are unpaid, which we have paid no apportionments this year. And then it is apportionments up until the date of the annual conference, which would roughly be 6 months, and then an additional year. So it's basically 2.5 years of apportionments, and our apportionments are like $67,000 and some odd dollars a year. So 2.5 times 67,000 is the apportionment part. By and large, the biggest part of that 10% is the real property. Harry?
Going back to the question of move up to make it easier on the trustees and the bishop to make decisions about accepting a church's wish to disaffiliate. So,
Whoever, somebody said something back there, I didn't hear you, but yes, I problem.
So that's what the DS told me in a conversation I had, was that when they backed up the requirement for December the 1st for all of this financial information, that it was to make it easier on the trustees, conference trustees, to determine what the requirements are. If you recall, last year they had 113 people, 113 congregations that disaffiliated. So I don't know what they're anticipating for 2024, but I'm sure they were overwhelmed with having to go through 113 different churches' financial documents. So they're trying to avoid that big rush over it gives them one more month to go over this.
but it goes back to, in my opinion, let's make it easier on them rather than respectful of the church having all the information they need, like from the
Can you repeat what she just said?
She's just saying that it makes it easier, the reason they did it is to make it easier on them than respectful of the individual congregations.
Well, let's don't forget that we had this opportunity last year. We had plenty of time.
Well, we had the opportunity, but if you recall, Fred, the disaffiliation in South Carolina, the pathway to disaffiliation was not published until December the 22nd of last year. There was no path in South Carolina. Disaffiliation was a non sequitur. There was no way to disaffiliate because the bishop, his interpretation was that the book of discipline had not changed, and so there was no pathway to disaffiliation. Marcia?
I'm going to say it if you can hear me. My first question is, the two options should be disaffiliate are Global United Methodist and Independent, correct? There's the Wesleyan Covenant, the Global, and then just an Independent. I think most churches have stayed independent, waiting to find that have disaffiliated. I think that's what you'll find. In the 30-day process, is there time, if we were to go into that, is there time for our congregation to hear from the Global or the Wesleyan Covenant to see how we want to vote? Should we vote to disaffiliate? Like, what are these other groups about?
Sure, I'm sure there are people out there that are advocates for the Global or the Wesleyan Covenant who would gladly come and speak to the church if we ask them to.
They both have websites as well.
There is a document put out by the Global Methodist Church that outlines the differences between them and us. Both the Global Methodist Church and the United Methodist Church basically have the same theological doctrine, which is the Wesleyan doctrine. That's why they maintain the name Methodist. It's not United, it's just Global. But there's a lot of stuff on YouTube, there's a lot of stuff, you can just Google up Global United Methodist, Global Methodist Church, and you'll find a lot of that.
Harriet?
But we don't have to decide where we're going.
No.
We can remain independent and not make a decision about that. So it doesn't have to be so many things that have to be decided.
So I think, Adam?
Yeah,
putting so many options in there, it just confuses the topic. I mean, let's keep, if we end up disaffiliating, we have plenty of time to figure out where we're gonna go. But let that happen then. Don't try to confuse folks and keep saying, disaffiliate, not disaffiliate, disaffiliate, go this way, go that way. That's just confusing. This is an important decision that we don't need to have tons and tons of options about and tons of things confusing people. Let's keep it as simple as we can so we can make an informed decision, an incredibly important decision for all of us.
Brad?
Ralph, will the results of the survey help guide the administrative council on their decision to proceed with the survey or not?
The answer to Brad's question is, does the survey guide the administrative council on how they will vote? And the answer to that question is yes. And we have had that discussion at the administrative council that we would hope that those people who are members of the administrative council will take into consideration what the church congregation membership has expressed in the on their survey forms and vote consistent with that. But that is a hope. There's no way that we can make people vote one way or the other. We hope that they will vote in a way that will be reflective of the congregation. And by the way, that vote is just to go through discernment, that's just a simple 50% majority for the discernment. When we get around to disaffiliation, if we go that far, it's 67% of professing members present at a called conference, church conference. And
If you go through discernment in January, and then you choose not to disaffiliate, but then after the conference, can you go back and change that, or can you only do it sometime?
no, you can do it. The problem, the difficulty is another year would go by, and you would have to wait until 2025 to go through the disaffiliation process. So, but yes, and according to our bishop, he has said that there will always be a disaffiliation pathway, and that it would be the same as it is now. Okay, I think we've beat everything to death. I hope everybody will answer the first question where it says, did you get anything from the town hall meetings? I will say that going through all this, and I've tried to remain as neutral as possible because I think that's important for whoever the moderator is to do that. Laney and I have emailed back and forth some days 10 or 12 times, text, emails, phone calls about how to set all this stuff up and make all these things happen. And I think it was last Friday I was looking at an email that I sent to her that had to do with tonight's meeting, and after I answered her question, I said, geez, this is really getting out of hand. And the last sentence of that email was that this is definitely not what Jesus had in mind. Laney, would you dismiss us?
Won't you pray with me? Dear Heavenly Father, you are gracious and you are mighty. We love you and we praise you. God, I thank you for this holy space that you have gifted to all of us. And I thank you for the ways in which you have entrusted us with it. The years that have come before today and the years that will come tomorrow. God, as we leave this place tonight, having had these conversations, I hope that as we go home to our families, our friends, our leaders, that they continue. That we continue to talk about how we grow the body of Christ within the walls of this church and our community. God, give us the discernment that we need as we go forward. Give us the words and the actions to further grow your people and to do it as a church family. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you.